Yo, hello, and welcome to Facet Nation, a
Woohoo!
gemology podcast. I'm Simon.
And I'm Lucinda.
Welcome. Lucinda, what are we going to talk about today?
So today we're going to talk about what really to me, I had no idea. Like this was the scariest part to me when I first became a gemologist, which is the practical side of gemology. So we are going to talk about what should be in your gemologist toolkit. I think as an outsider, it's one of the most stressful things because everything is expensive. You don't know how anything works, but actually when you have the right tools, being a gemologist can be really, really fun and interesting. So this is what should be in your back pocket.
The gem kit, as it's called.
Exactly.
And what's essential and what is maybe a bit more advanced.
Exactly. And we will go through each instrument in detail in its own special episode. This is really just a primer to get you started, get you comfortable, and get you excited about the practical side of gemology. It's not scary. Once you get the hang of it, you start testing some stones, it can actually be the most fun experience, especially when you're not up against the clock like we were in our exam.
Yeah, and actually once you are a gemologist, as it were, you probably feel pretty confident and comfortable with identifying things, given enough time, basically just enough time, isn't it? Like
exactly.
There's always an answer that you can arrive at, because every single gem has its own way of being identified. You just have to unpick that lock. And that's the critical thing. You've got to find out that gem's hidden secret and how it's going to reveal itself to you.
Exactly. And every instrument is its own little key to one of those locks. And so today we're going to talk about full testing is really its own beast, but there are definitely ways that each instrument can identify. If you've got a little suspicion about a stone, picking the right instrument first can mean that you don't have to do any more testing. So
yeah, literally.
Or if your question is this a piece of paste? There's actually ways that you can figure it out with one little turn on the polariscope. Isn't that right, Simon?
If you can one and done it, then basically you are a good gemologist. This is what Craig used to say. The best
Craig was our tutor, by the way, if we keep talking about this random person named Craig.
Sorry, yeah, like the mythical genius that is Craig.
Shout out to Craig.
But yeah, if you can one and done it, then that means you're a good gemologist because you're immediately looking at a stone and being like, right, I have my suspicions. Let me confirm or deny those suspicions. And then if I can confirm them straight away, then I know what it is. If I can't confirm it, then I know where else to look.
Exactly. And when we talk about practical gemology, especially if you're doing the Gem A course, so there's two sides of it. There's the theory and there's the practical. The theory is kind of what we like to talk about at dinner parties where you're going on about the band gap and everybody's really bored. But the practical is really the bread and butter of being a gemologist. It's taking an unidentified stone, taking your grandma's ring, and giving it a test to really identify what that stone is and whether it is natural, it's synthetic, how it was produced, all of that really fun, interesting stuff.
And is effectively how you're going to apply everything that you learn in the real world, isn't it? Like, you don't necessarily need to tell people about the geological conditions that a stone grows under, but knowing it is important as a background bit of info and a basis for your knowledge. But the practical side is the thing that's going to be used, and yeah, the things that I apply at work is mostly the practical stuff.
For sure.
Or go on.
No, you go on.
Well, I was going to say, and not necessarily at work, because my mum has this habit now.
She's developed a habit, hasn't she?
So I told you in the previous episode, like my parents are jewelers, and my mum has a jewelry store, and she's got this habit now of buying things at auction and just sort of not really knowing what they are and hoping that the auctioneer doesn't really know what they are either. Be like, oh, that looks like a nice blue stone. Let me buy it, stick it in the post to Simon,
it's a sapphire,
and see if he can tell me what it is. And I'm like, she's like, can you please assess this, tell me what it is, give it a value, and then send it back to me. I'm like, yes, mum, because I have all the time in the world to
Is she
do
paying you for this
your.
service?
No,
Has she
no,
had any
she's
big
not.
wins? Like somebody
Um,
sold something as blue paste and it turned out to be a cashmere sapphire.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm looking behind myself because there's like a whole pile of bags with Simon written on the front of them. And then a load of brown packets inside it with, can you tell me what this is? I haven't looked at them yet. Like they're literally piling up. So I need to find some time to do that for you. Sorry, mum. I will get around to it. But, I have my own stuff to do as well.
That is the secret. It's the blessing and the curse of the certified gemologist, which is everybody comes to you for an opinion on their cousin's mom's family heirloom, and sometimes having to tell people that their amethyst is a mystic topaz can be pretty heart-rending.
Yeah,
So
because
you want to make
that's
sure that you're
brutal.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we talk about practical gemology, to picture it, really, picture a bunch of people hunched over in a dark room squinting at things, because that's very much the vibe. Simon, why do we often test stones ideally in like perfect darkness?
Because light plays a very important part in GMs. Certain stones can look different under different lighting. So ideally we want daylight, but true daylight has weird aspects to it that we will go into because it's quite technical. That doesn't make it perfect. So you want a light source that is going to mimic daylight with all the colors of the spectrum, basically. You want all the colors of the spectrum available to you in natural white light in order to be able to assess your material without it giving you any strange or peculiar results.
Yeah, as
Would you
accurately as
agree?
possible, basically. Exactly. And all of
Exactly. Yeah.
gem testing relies on manipulating light in some way. And so light is made up, as Simon was saying, of a spectrum of colors. And so you want, in most cases, that spectrum to be as complete as possible, so that your instruments can behave the way that they need to be behaving, basically.
But in our sort of gem kit, if you like, we have two types of light. We have like a daylight balance, and then we also have a halogen, so a little mag light, or you might use a fiber optic light if you have one. They have different peaks in their wavelength in the visible light spectrum that also cause different habits. So you need to make sure you're using the right one at the right time. Would be my advice, and we'll go deeper into that in a future episode too.
Yes, and we'll also talk about color change stones, which will change color depending on the kind of light source that you're using. So always good to have both on hand so that you can do a little check to see if your stone is color changed, because they do like to throw those color change stones at you, don't they? Surprise,
They do,
it's a
indeed.
color change.
And if you don't have the different light sources, you're not going to be able to tell.
Nope. Is it just pleochroism? You need to know. We'll talk about that in a different episode too.
I was going to say, you first of all need to know what pleochroism is.
Don't worry, we'll get to it.
Yeah.
But first, the toolkit. So we've talked about our two kinds of light source. I don't know why I'm waving this ruler around at you. This is actually something you should also have, which I didn't have for many months.
I was going to say, it's nice to see you've actually got one, because
I think I went about 6 months into our diploma course without a ruler.
Whoa.
So every time we did a mock, I would just put lol where the measurements were supposed to be.
You had one in your Amazon basket for about 6 months from my memory.
It is true. And then I bought it and I lost it immediately. So that was really good.
Okay.
But I had one on exam day, and that's what matters.
It looks like you've broken that one too. It's got like a little shatter in it.
This is a full foot ruler, and it's too big for the kit. The one that you want in your kit, hold on, I'm looking in my gemology drawer. I don't have it. But how long? You want the 6-inch ones, really? Because you're talking like millimeters.
Yeah. And you want it to be able to fit in your little kit bundle.
But do you know what I'm using at work that I'm obsessed with now is Presidium gauges.
I've got one of them. Yeah, they're great. Really
They're
good.
So good. They are expensive, though. But that's...
Have you got a digital one?
No, we've got the old school dial one, which I love.
I've got the same, yeah. Yeah, it's cool. I love it.
It's more romantic.
I agree. Yeah, it's less accurate, more romantic. You're right.
Yes. But essentially what we're saying is you need some way to measure your stones. Length, width,
Yeah.
depth, ideally.
Yeah, because there are also ways of working out what stone weighs if it's set into jewelry, if you know that information as well, which is
Yeah. There are some
like
crazy formulas you can follow.
but that's really critical. Actually, you don't really need the formulas because there's loads of apps that you can just punch those details, those numbers into.
Modern gemology.
Gemstone calculator apps. And you just choose the material, put the length, width, and depth in, and it tells you based on its specific gravity, hunky dory.
That's pretty cool. We should do an episode about the best gemology apps. That's for another time. Okay, so we've got a ruler, we've got 2 light sources. What's next, Simon? What's in our gemology kit? Which sounds obvious, but I really think before I started this journey, I wouldn't have known that you should be looking at stones with tweezers. Why are tweezers so important specifically?
Well, having said that, actually, a lot of times when I have like gem dealers and that coming to see me, I'm a little bit hesitant to use tweezers. Now, gems have different properties like hardness, for example. And sometimes if you've got a set of stainless steel tweezers and you're grabbing away at stones, those tweezers can be harder than the gemstones. You need to be a little bit careful with using tweezers because you might damage a stone. An opal, for example, picking up with tweezers maybe is not the best idea. So actually, I've got a set of tweezers that have like a bit of rubber on the end of them.
Nice, that's clever.
For picking up like pearls and opals and softer stones. But yeah, there's various stones that maybe you don't necessarily want to use with tweezers. But back to your question, why are tweezers important? Because basically you need to be able to hold them and look at them properly.
Yeah, get your fat fingers out of the way.
Get your fat fingers out of the way. Yeah, because
one day I was really bad with tweezers and now I'm really good with them. And someone at work, actually, I was doing a stone selection and they're like, wow, you're amazing with the tweezers. It's just about practice. And also one thing Craig says was try and touch your face. Touch your face when you're using tweezers so that like your whole body's
anchored.
Connected. Yeah.
Yeah, everything's really secure and anchored, yeah.
And once you get good with it, there's nothing that makes you feel as cool as like picking up a stone and looping it when you've got your tweezers and you look like a pro.
Another tip maybe that I would say is make sure your tweezers, if you're have that little groove in them.
Yes.
Because if you can get the girdle of the stone in that little groove, it's just so much more secure. Because yeah, lots of horror stories of pinging stones across the room.
I mean, the risk of throwing a stone across the room is always high. It just exists. It doesn't go away.
But that little groove gives you a little bit more, you feel a little bit safer when you've got that little groove to sort of like tuck it in. Or even those ones with the little, have you got one of those ones that work with the slide lock?
No.
Oh, so you've got like a little thing
is
slide
the
up.
octopus one? Have you seen the octopus gem holders?
Oh, like the little pickled onion.
All the diamond dealers use them, yeah. And they basically let light shine through, so they're really nice for seeing the true color of a stone. And they're very secure.
But no, I'm talking literally just like tweezers, and they have like a slide thing, and it locks it tight on the stone, and you slide it up, and then it doesn't come open.
No, I've never seen that. That's
they're
cool.
pretty good.
Great. The other thing, I mean, we've touched on it, but a loop, so a 10 times loop comes in the Gem A course kit. 10 times is definitely my preferred magnification. Simon's holding his. Look, mine's here on my Gem A lanyard. I love this motherfucker. I use this little guy for everything.
Yeah, I constantly have mine around my neck with my Gem A lanyard every day.
We're those people now.
We are those people now, yeah. Important points to make. It needs to be a triplet loop, yeah? I.e. I think that means it has 3 lenses, which stops it from having any distortion around the edges. Sometimes it can distort around the edges.
What was the?
Planatic.
Yes.
So that's the distortion. So it needs to be aplanatic to stop the distortion and achromatic to stop the color
Yeah, to stop
from looking weird.
warping the color. And they're pretty cheap loops, and they're incredibly useful.
Yeah. So you can pick a triplet loop up for what, probably like 10 or 15 quid. I've got a Zeiss one, which I spent a bit more on. And actually, if you're trying to read GIA laser inscriptions on the edge of a girdle, the difference that my expensive loop makes versus a less expensive loop is actually quite a lot. I used to have to read them with 20 times loops, but I can now do it with my 10 times because it is a very good quality one. So, yeah, on the surface, but they can be quite inexpensive. But if you do invest a bit more, you do see some benefit, I would say.
And I find 20 times loops really disorienting, but some people really like them to get a closer look at.
You have to be so close to it, don't you?
They make me feel a bit motion sick.
Yeah, the focus is really hard. But practice is all it takes. You just got to practice, keeping elbows on desks, keeping it.
Yeah. And it's such a powerful little tool. Because
Yeah,
you can't
100%.
tell a lot about a stone just by looking at it.
But a diamond grader at GIA, for example, will grade the stone using just that. And if you do the DGA at GEMA, you are grading stones for clarity, literally just using one of these.
And that's how they get their rating.
And a daylight balance lamp.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is how a stone is graded, basically.
Very cool. All right, what's next in the kit, Si?
We are going to move on to the polariscope.
A very nifty bit of kit.
Yes.
And it basically works in principle. It's paired with a flat lamp, and what it's telling you is whether the stone is rearranging the light as it passes through. And this gives you lots of information about very technical properties of the stone, which we'll talk about in a different episode. But what makes it really useful, I find, is it gives characteristic responses for paste. So if you're wondering whether a stone is paste or not, you can chuck it on the polariscope, give it a spin, and if you see what are called writhing snakes, you've got paste.
And just for context, paste is glass.
Glass.
Basically. So man-made glass imitation.
Your stone is a fake.
You see it a lot in like antique jewelry. It's normally quite chipped because it's quite soft and brittle. But yeah, it's effectively just glass that is imitating a gemstone, artificial material. Yeah. Paste.
When do you like to use, do you have like a specific order you like to use your instruments in testing?
No strict order. I might look at something and think, oh, I think this is this, and this is going to get me to the answer quickest. So, the path of least resistance, as we were talking about, the one and done. Sometimes the polariscope is going to do that for you, though.
Well, the reason I ask is because the polariscope is not in a full testing. I always go to the polariscope first, and that's because it's also really useful in separating stones into two broad categories. So there's oh my God, I just forgot the words. So isotropic stones and anisotropic stones, which we'll talk about in more detail in another episode. But basically, when you put something on a polariscope, it gives you a response that will eliminate a huge chunk of stones, whichever way it goes.
Basically, I suppose, to briefly touch on that, some stones and their makeup, light operates and travels through it exactly the same in all orientations. In some, they're called isotropic stones. So light is, no matter what way you shine light through it, it's going to do exactly the same thing in all directions. And then anisotropic stones, light behaves completely differently depending on the path of travel through the material. And like Lucinda says, we'll touch on that in a bit more detail, but that's essentially the science behind how it distinguishes these two groups of gemstones.
Yeah, so a very useful instrument. Next up, this instrument you don't get it at foundation, you get it at diploma, and I thought to myself, once I have this, I will never struggle to identify a stone again. How wrong I was, but still a very useful piece of kit. The refractometer, Simon, what's the refractometer testing?
I mean, strictly speaking, if you are a gemologist, the refractometer is probably the most important bit of kit because each gem material has its own refractive index, i.e. how it refracts light. And if you can basically work out what its refractive index is and its birefringence, so that's the difference between the light and how they're split when light enters it, then you can pretty much work out what gemstone you have in front of you. They're very difficult to use and quite have
can be
various
moody.
quirks, though. Yes.
I will say the key with the refractometer is, so you have to, it's a glass table and you have to put a bit of liquid on it, which is very stinky. And this basically closes the gap between the stone and the table so that nothing's interfering with the reading. And that drop of liquid has to be so small that I would be hunched over, like putting a drop down, it's too big. I get my tissue, I try and get a little bit off and it like sucks it
and
up.
It's all
You're
gone.
like,
yeah.
Why, God?
No, yeah, that is so annoying.
But then you get it right and it's like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say there's a huge difference in testing with a refractometer in the real world and in exam land, which we can talk about a little bit later. In the real world, you don't have to be so precise about the readings, which I found.
But also the difficulty, like, as much as it's probably our most reliable bit of kit, in the real world, most of the gems you're going to be testing are going to be in jewelry.
Yes.
And that poses a heck of a lot of difficulties with using the refractometer, because that glass table that you speak of is glass, and scraping metal claws around on that glass table is going to destroy that glass table.
And let me tell you, these motherfuckers are expensive. I treat my refractometer like my firstborn child. It is.
So you've got to be very careful not to damage it, basically, because once you damage it, it's screwed, and it's like that's game over for your refractometer. You need a new one.
I do think the GIA refractometers are a little different, but they also don't seem as accurate to me.
Oh, really? I haven't seen one of them. What do they look like?
They're huge. They're like spaceships, and they're plastic. And I can't actually use one. So we got this ring in with red stones, and I was asked to test it using my boss's GIA refractometer. And when I tell you, I felt like the biggest dummy because I could not get this thing to work.
Oh, really? Does it have the light built in the back as well?
No, so it's got, we use a Gem sodium yellow light, but the table is set up differently. So like the stone has to be at a certain place on the table to get a reading. Whereas the Gem one, because I use it so much, I can do it almost immediately with almost any stone. But it was very stressful. I felt really stupid.
Well, that's weird. I'd like to see one of them. We need to get a hold of one.
I'll take a picture of the one at work and send it to you.
Yeah, this is something I've been thinking about, because we don't actually have much knowledge on the GIA version of what we did. It would be nice to have an insight into that if anybody has some info they can give us and help things that we might want to touch on.
Definitely.
Then that might be useful, because there's going to be differences. Obviously, some of the instruments are completely different, aren't they?
Oh, completely. And the exam is really different. And I think what we should definitely do is talk to Akansha, my boss, about Gem versus GIA, so that if you are thinking about taking a course, you can pick the one that's going to end up being right for you and for your career ambitions.
The pros and cons of each one. Yeah.
Indeed. All right, what's next on our list, Si?
The spectroscope. So going back to the light source that we have, we want to be, again, focusing on the white light spectrum, the visible color spectrum, and all the different colors involved in that, which are...
Are you asking me?
I'm asking you, yeah.
Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet. Richard of York gave battle in vain.
Yes, that's the one. Yeah, that's the. It's hard to.
That took me way too long to.
It's hard to do that while you're, isn't it? You're like, Richard. If you can write it down, then we're all good. You go, oh, yeah. Richard of York gave battle in vain.
And you want to do it backwards when you're reporting on your spectroscope.
Although, actually, that little, what's that called, a mnemonic or something, has indigo in it. No, one of them's wrong, isn't it? Indigo, blue, yeah. So we don't actually use indigo. So it just gave battle vein.
Yeah,
We
just
just go
ignore.
from blue straight to
Somehow I
violet.
didn't even clock that this whole 2 years of my life. I just did not even register that indigo was meant to be there.
Yeah, no, indigo's out. We don't like indigo. Get rid of that. But the visible light color spectrum is basically the colors of the rainbow, right? And the spectroscope, if you look at a white light source through the spectroscope, will show you all of those colors of the spectrum quite nice and evenly split out on, like in a row. And if you put something between the light source and the spectroscope, you're going to notice what that material absorbs, which parts of the visible light it absorbs, and those patterns and those absorptions will tell you what material you're looking at in some occasions.
Incredibly useful for things like red paste, which we've had on exam. Another one. What are some of your favorite? What are your favorite spectrums?
So I really like the apatite one. If you're looking at something you think, oh, this looks a bit sort of beat up. It's kind of bluey color. You're like, I fancy that to be apatite. I'm going straight in with spectroscope, because if you can see that characteristic or diagnostic spectrum. So we're going to talk a lot about diagnostic things. And a diagnostic spectrum is basically, if you see this, it is that. Yeah?
So helpful sometimes.
Yeah. And this goes back to the one and done thing. If you can find a diagnostic spectrum, then you know for certain that material is that. Zircon is one. Apatite
Zircon's
is
amazing.
One.
Yeah.
Zircon, you basically don't need to do anything else.
But you can't. I've gotten in trouble with the spectroscope before. My great shame was the demantoid garnet that I mis-ID'd in one of our mock exams, because I saw an iron line and thought this was a chrysoberyl diagnostic spectrum. So sometimes you have to put things into context. So for example, peridot has a fabulous diagnostic spectrum, but the peridot that will actually show that perfect spectrum is very rare.
Very, very rare. So this is all like a perfect best case scenario. You're going to see this perfect like absorption in the visible light. Very, very, very rarely happens. Unless, of course, you've got synthetic stones, and synthetic stones tend to have very, very clear and defined spectrum, which is one of the things that you should be interesting.
Yeah, love to see a ruby spectrum that's out of this world. Some of them are like very fun and cool when you get a synthetic stone that's doped with all kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah, and then like the lines that you're supposed to see are so well defined, and you're like, this is super suspicious because I've got a stone that is this rich in this element that's causing that. Then it's either unreal or it's probably synthetic.
One thing I have found with the spectroscope, you mentioned this actually when we were in class one day. You start off using your mag lights, like a little flashlight, with your spectroscope, and then if you're in Gem A, you'll be able to use a fiber optic light. And once you get used to that fiber optic light, it's impossible to go back.
Yeah,
I now can't see anything without a fiber optic.
It's the same thing, just much stronger, isn't it? It gives you those lines much more clearly. So, yeah, you need that strong light source, or you just need really fresh batteries in your mag light.
Exactly. All right, the next one is my personal favorite, probably, because I live for pleochroism. It's my favorite thing in the world, the dichroscope. Tell me about the dichroscope.
I love pleochroism as well. So we're going back to these isotropic and anisotropic materials and how light is split as it travels through various gem material. And this is going to show you what happens when the light splits. So with a dichroscope, you can see different pleochroic colors. Tanzanite's a really good example of this. Tanzanite is trichroic, and in various directions that you look at it will display different colors to you. And this is kind of pretty close to being diagnostic of tanzanite, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, for sure. And you can also tell whether tanzanite has been treated based on whether it shows you 2 colors or it shows you 3, which is quite cool.
99% of the time it's been, well, not necessarily treated, but it's been heated in some way, whether either naturally or by somebody trying to improve the color or eliminate the shitty one of the three colors.
Kind of yellow, the yellowy color.
Like it's a manky yellow color. You don't really associate manky yellow with a tanzanite. Normally your blues and your violets, right?
And when you're reporting on the microscope, you want to say how many colors you're seeing and also how strongly the color change or the difference between the colors is. It's not, pleochrome is not color change. That has been hammered into my mind. And you want to rotate the stone completely because there's always going to be one direction where there is no color change. Is that right?
That's something important to say about the polariscope as well. Looking at stones from all and every angle is really important because different directions of light through the stone is going to give you different readings. And if you're not observing all of those different readings, then you might come unstuck and miss something. You've got to be thorough. You've got to be a thorough detective, not
Very
just like
thorough. Do you know what we forgot? It's not even on our list, and now I'm devastated. The conoscope.
Oh, yeah, the conoscope is like, the conoscope is a one and doneer, actually, in some scenarios. So, yeah, going back to the polariscope, this probably needs a bit more explanation in another time. But yes, you're right, the conoscope is super important and can help you identify as a one and done quartz, right?
Yeah, super useful for quartz. In fact, I would say such a blessing for quartzes.
Yeah, because quartz has quite a similar RI to a lot of things. Going back to the refractometer, has a lot of, and can come in a whole range of different colors. So it could be all manner of different gemstones. But if you can use your conoscope to see that, it's called the bullseye interference figure, which requires a lot of explanation, which we'll go into in the future. But if you can see that, then you basically know that it's a variety of quartz in some way.
And that's why another reason it's really important to rotate things all the way around is what you're looking for your conoscope is interference. And you may not see it in one direction, but it may show up if you're rotating your stone.
But you're going to see that interference figure if you're looking down the C-axis, is that right?
Something like that.
Yeah.
And the last one doesn't really, I don't know. How do you feel about this one, Simon? It's the Chelsea color filter.
So the Chelsea color filter was basically invented by Gem-A.
Shout out to the lads at Chelsea College.
Yeah. So
was it in the 50s or the 70s?
I think something like that. And that was originally to separate emerald from synthetic emerald. Is that right?
Yeah. So a bunch of new synthetic emeralds were washing through the trade.
And it works by filtering out but basically only allows red and green light through it. Is that right?
I think so. We'll go in depth into how it works.
Yeah, but effectively, the Chelsea color filter is really useful for separating blue topaz and aquamarine.
Yeah, and that's basically the only useful.
But that is one of those instances where it's pretty much like a one and done. If you've got a pale blue stone and you're like, shit, I don't know what this is, get your Chelsea color filter on it, and if it's kind of I don't know, if it comes back pale greeny blue, then it's an aquamarine. If it comes back sort of a
fleshy yellow pink,
pinkish yellow color, then it's a blue topaz. Basically, you might want to do a couple of other tests just to satisfy your mind, but that's more or less
very useful for set jewelry as well.
Yeah.
If you can't get it on your refractometer, that'll tell you which is which.
And actually, do you know what I find the Chelsea color filter quite useful for? Synthetic red stones. Because those things, if you can get your light into the stone and look at it through the Chelsea color filter and the damn thing's bright red, then you're going to be like,
red flags will be waving.
Probably a bit too red, a bit too chromium rich, and we have got synthetic on our hands. Either that or a super, super expensive and valuable ruby, for example. And the likelihood of that is I don't know, depending on the environment you're in, but yeah, probably less likely than not.
And there are some things that will not come in your kit if you take a GEMA course, but that are super useful and that we love. I think for me, the one that I always recommend people buy is the UV pen.
Mm-hmm.
So at GEMA,
So,
you have access to a UV box, but when you're out in the world, UV is such a quick way of getting an idea of where you're at with a stone.
so you get long wave UV. You need it to be 365 nanometers.
That is correct.
And then if you're going to get a UV box that's got shortwave in it, which is like shortwave UV is quite dangerous. So it needs to be contained in some way. That needs to be 254 nanometers.
As many
again,
nanometers as the year is long, and then -1 for shortwave.
There we go. That's how we remember it. But yeah, a long wave UV light source, like a pen light or something like that. Actually, if you've got colorless white stones and you want to know and you think they're diamond and you want to know if they're natural or not, if some of them fluoresce blue, then they are definitely natural. Synthetic lab-grown diamonds do not fluoresce blue.
About 20% of natural diamonds should fluoresce blue. Also, as I mentioned, was it in the last episode, amber is really useful. Amber will usually fluoresce kind of a pale chalky blue. What else? Rubies, actually. So if you want to tell the difference, if you think you've got ruby or garnet, give it a little UV, and a ruby should fluoresce unless it's from like Thailand. They have
Fluoride's
iron.
going to fluoresce, which is
Do
what
people have
fluorescence is named
fluoride,
after.
Let me look
I
at my
don't know.
jewelry box and see what else I have that might fluoresce.
Where else do I like the fluorescence in? Basically, in this modern age of synthetic
Pearls?
and lab-grown diamonds, fluorescence is how we identify them.
Very useful.
Pearls.
And they're really cheap. And like, I just keep mine in my bag.
Yeah.
And just hit stuff with it and see what happens.
And really chromium rich, like spinels or rubies, look sick underneath.
Yeah, so cool.
UV light. Do you know what we bought the other day? A yellow diamond, and it had yellow fluorescence.
That's cool.
It looked really good. That has something to do with the nitrogen being in pairs, I think, rather than groups of 3, which is again something we'll go into in a future episode. But that's what causes the yellow fluorescence over the blue fluorescence, which you would normally find. But it was really cool. Yeah, you shone the pen light on it, and it was literally like glowing bright yellow.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
and
it was
do you
really
think
cool.
in that case, because some people don't like a diamond that fluoresces, do you think that would be a selling point for that though, for that stone?
100%. Yeah, that's only going to enhance its color. I guess that's the same as a ruby having strong red fluorescence, because like your pigeon blood rubies are fluorescing like madness.
Even in daylight, they'll fluoresce. They're so ready for it.
And that's what's causing your beautiful bright red color. And then I guess a yellow diamond that has bright yellow fluorescence is only enhancing its color and making it look better.
Yep. Very cool. What's some other stuff? I mean, I know we can see yours behind you. You've got the microscope.
I do, yeah. I love a microscope.
So how do we use, microscopes are great. Craig, our tutor, says, be careful in the exam because you'll just go on a pleasure cruise of the microscope. If you love gemstones and you love inclusions, it's the most fun that you can have, I think.
You can literally lose so much time. I don't know if you can see, but I've got my t-shirt on.
Oh, you've got your t-shirt up.
Yeah. This is I made a t-shirt out of a gem inclusion that I saw with my microscope, and managed to sort of get my phone in the eyepiece and take a photo of it, and then I had it printed on a t-shirt because I'm a loser. But I've now got a proper setup with my camera that I can sort of attach it to the top one. So that one there is the trinocular lens. So that's third lens. These two are the binocular ones. So you put your eyes and look at them through there. That's the trinocular one. The camera attaches to that, and we can take pictures of gem inclusions.
Nice. And they're also really useful for synthetic emeralds, which
Yeah,
can often be identified based on their inclusions, which you can see through a loop, but it just makes it so much clearer to look at a microscope.
so much
Also,
easier. Yeah,
like
and
any kind of flux stone, always, if I see something like that and I think it's either hydrothermal or flux, just chuck it on a microscope first thing, and then you just know.
or spinel inclusions too, like little octahedral crystals in there, like there's tiny like dusting of crystals in spinel. If you can get that under a microscope, you can sort of see it kind of looks a bit like there's like a group of cloudy, dusty inclusions. If you can get it under a microscope and you see the shape of them, and then you're pretty much looking at spinel. A lot of garnets as well have inclusions that you can see much better if you get under a microscope.
It's also just, they're
Yeah,
just fun. They're really fun and quite cool.
and some of them are like really weird. Like this one here looks pretty suspect. But yeah, you can find some weird and wonderful things under
So
a
true.
microscope.
Is there anything else that doesn't come in the standard kit that you like using, Simon?
Shall I tell you one other thing that is absolutely essential that you have, and it's a cloth. So a
Oh,
selbit,
yes,
a gem
of
cloth.
course, a gem cloth.
Your stones must be clean. You've got to make sure they're free from like fingerprints and stuff, because little marks and bits of dust and things you can confuse for stuff that they're not. So that's one other thing that I think is really essential. In fact, almost super essential, because if your stone's not clean, then you're going to start getting misreads on a lot of your instruments.
That is so true. And you also just won't be able to even observe properly because you won't be able to see what's going on inside the stone or on the surface of the stone if it's dirty.
Yep.
Nice one. And go on.
No.
I was going to
I was
ask
just going to say,
yeah.
I was just going to say about like immersion and things like that. Like sometimes you might want to
yes.
immerse the stone in various liquids to help you see. But again, that's something else that we'll cover a bit later on.
I never did that in the exam
advanced
situation. Yeah. Too much time, too much spillage.
Yeah, too much time wasting going on with that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Well, speaking of time wasting and time pressure, what have you found to be the difference between testing in a Gem A setting, so like testing for the exam, versus testing in the real world?
Literally just time pressure. Like ticking things off as quickly as possible and making sure you're like rattling through stuff. But in the real world, I guess you're under time pressure because your time is time is money.
And sometimes someone sat there looking at you, waiting for you to tell them.
But basically, you coming to the wrong conclusion is a heck of a lot more expensive than you spending a few extra minutes trying to determine what this thing is. But you don't get that luxury in the exam, unfortunately. So you gotta tighten your game up, and that's why the one and done thing is really useful, because if you can identify what it is within the first minute or so, then all the other stuff is just ticking boxes and picking up marks, which is what Craig used to say.
Cherry on top, basically. I've definitely found, I think in the real world, as you say, it's interesting because I don't think I'm as thorough when I test gems. I'll be more comfortable doing one test and making a call, for example. So, we had a situation at work where something might have been paste, it might have been amethyst, pop it on the refractometer, didn't even turn it, didn't have to. It had 2 shadow edges in the quartz field, and like that's good enough for me. But I also feel, especially when you're telling somebody that their stone is not real or it's not what they think it is,
I definitely feel some evidence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in some ways you need to be much more thorough, and in other ways you just don't. Like, it didn't matter what the birefringence was on that quartz, it wasn't paste, And what do you think are the most useful instruments in the real world?
I mean, like you said, we both have the loop around our neck these days. It's got to be the loop, really, right? You use it for everything. You use it for looking at the jewelry item itself as opposed to just the stones. Like assessing the quality, the manufacturing quality. Like, your loop is your best mate, if you ask me. I don't know if you agree with that.
No, I totally agree with that. I think especially You know, it's just useful in all variety of situations, and it really is a starting point for even beginning to plan how you're going to test. But I will also say so much of the question that we get in the real world isn't what stone is this? It's, is this paste? Is this glass? And so I've found, especially with set jewelry, the polariscope has been one of my go-tos, because I'm just checking to see if there's writhing snakes, and if there's not, like, you know, if
We
my
move
intern
on.
has just brought something in to see if it's real or fake, you know, which is not terminology you necessarily use as a gemologist. That's a quick one and done. She's satisfied with that answer. Move on.
Perfect.
Lovely.
So
And
that's the gem kit, is it? Or have we got more?
well, I was going to say, I just have one more question for you, which is, if someone is just starting out, what is the one instrument that you recommend that they get, or like the order in which you would get things personally?
Tweezers, cloth, loop, and then the other stuff is you need to be taught how to use the other stuff, right?
Yeah.
But you can more or less use those on your own, and you need to understand the other ones. So yeah, if you want to be observing stones and trying to get an idea of how they are and what they look like, then that's what you need. And then if you're going to get a bit advanced, what do you think you should be focusing on next?
I think the refractometer, but it's so expensive.
It's so expensive, and like for your casual, I mean, if you're going to be a gemologist, then you have to have a refractometer.
Yeah. I think that's what separates the hobbyists from it was when I got my refractometer that I was like, okay, this is either going to be a very expensive hobby or it has to be a new career.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you've made some sort of commitment to doing this if you've got one of them. Yeah, you're right.
Fabulous. Well, Simon, any last thoughts about instruments and the gem kit? How to
I
use
don't
it?
think so. Get them. Yeah, have a little play around with them. Like, don't feel the need to spend loads of money on them if you're not going to be, like you said, serious about this. When you're going to sort of, you make that decision as to whether this is going to be a hobby or a. But yeah, make sure you buy good quality versions of them, and yeah, have some fun.
Yeah.
And if something we should probably say is that if anyone's got any questions or things, then we'll put a little link up that lets people get in touch with us. Yeah.
Yeah, we will read and answer your gemology questions, whether they're about gemology specifically or Gem A or the exam process. Anything
things
you
that
want to
people
know.
want us to cover.
Yeah.
Because we are just feeling our way around this just as much as anybody else. And if anyone's got advice or things that would be useful to them, then please let us know.
Yeah. Fabulous. Well,
Okay.
thank you, Simon. What a pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah. No,
And
a
we'll
lovely one.
see everybody next week.